Good afternoon. I'm Brad Kennedy with the Division of District Support. We're going to do an overview of January growth factor, kind of look at what it is, whether you need to submit January growth factor, and if you do qualify for January growth, how to actually submit the report. January growth factor is a way for school districts who qualify to get funding recalculated for the current year based on attendance thus far. And we'll go into how you determine whether you actually qualify or not here in just a second. January growth factor includes much of the same information that is in SAR and in the fall growth factor: aggregate days attendance, race and gender count, home hospital, adjustments for less than full-time attendance, non-resident, non-contract students, overage and underage students. And all of that information is reported by grade, or by school, by grade level, and by their T code. The January growth factor is due 5 days after the last day of the school month chosen. So it'll either be month 5 or month 6, depending on which one had the most attendance days in January. And ultimately, it's due no later than February 20th. It is KRS 157.360.15 that spells that out for you if you are curious. Some quick hitters about January growth factor. It's not a requirement. District calendars must be up to date in Infinite Campus prior to submission. T codes must also be up to date in Infinite Campus. Districts will be submitting a SAR report to KDE with the records 5, 7, 9, and H. That's the condensed version for January growth factor. The same data cleanup rules that apply to SAR also, or a second month growth factor, also apply to January growth factor. And if a district doesn't incur any growth or actually shows a loss in ADA, there is no deduction of program funding to the district. We'll look at how January growth factor is calculated. January growth factor is based upon the school month with the most attendance days in January. So you don't include, days that you're out for break or holiday, things like that. And if the month selected, and it's going to be month 5 or 6, exceeds the prior year AADA plus growth by at least 1%, then an adjustment in your district SEEK payments shall be proportional to the remaining days in the school year. This is subject to availability of funds, and this year there are funds available, so those who qualify can get their SEEK funding recalculated. Growth factor is a subset of SAR, so the same records that you submit for the second month growth factor and for SAR are the same data that you'll be using for January growth factor. So growth factor record 1 is your ethnic count, that's SAR record 5. Growth factor record 2 is your aggregate attendance and absence, that's SAR record 7. Growth factor record 4 is your non-contract, overage, underage students, that's going to be SAR record 9. And then growth factor H is also record H for SAR, and those are the 4 records that you would be submitting for January growth factor. The easy thing about January growth factor is the calculation has already been done for you. If you simply refer back to the fall growth factor email sent from KDE, from myself, you'll see a graphic that looks like what you see on the screen there. And over on the far right, highlighted in red, it shows you the required AADA for January growth. That email would have come from me sometime in October or November. If you're searching for it. The AADA needed to reach in order to be eligible for January growth factor, again, is highlighted there in red. If your growth factor, if your current is higher than what you see there in red, then you should submit. And if it's not higher than that number, then you don't need to submit. There's a complete checklist of quality assurance reports in the January growth factor manual, which will be posted on the KDE webpage. It's the same things, again, that you do for growth factor or for SAR. like the enrollment overlap, missing T codes, things like that. Just a reminder that we can't process a growth factor, January growth factor, SAR, or anything with any enrollment overlaps greater than 1 day. Okay, we'll take a minute to look at the submission process. The first thing you're going to do is choose the correct school month, and the path is there on the screen for you. Go to System Admin, Calendar, and you'll go to School Months, and you'll see something looks like this with your district's dates. I usually jot these dates down just so that I have them when I go to the next screen and I can decide which one has the most attendance days. So you'll go to System Admin, Calendar, and you'll click Print for your school months, and you'll see a PDF of all of the school months. Here we've just pulled up month 5 and month 6, and we're going to actually count the number of attendance days in the month of January for month 5 or month 6. So for month 5, we can see there was no school January 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, so we're going to count starting on the 6th. There's 5 days in that week. The next week, there's another 5 days, and month 5 ends on January 20th. So we know month 5 had 10 days. We'll look for month 6 now. We're out for, as you see in the legend there, they're out on the 17th, or excuse me, the 20th. So we'll count how many days in January month 6 had. We see the 21st through 24th, and then 5 days the following week. So 9 days. So in this example, month 5 has 10 days, and month 6 has 9. Therefore, we would want to choose month 5. Now that we know which month is the correct month to choose, we want to run the ADM ADA detail report. And the path there, attendance reports, and then ADM ADA detail. And then if you just replicate the selections you see on the screen there, choosing all calendars, summary, funding, you'll put in the dates that match, so December 10th through January 20th. And then you'll click Generate Report. Once you do that, you will get a report back that looks like the top half of your screen here. And circled in red there, we can see that the funding ADA for that month 5, based on those dates that we chose, is 896.44. And again, referring back to that email sent from myself from KDE during the second month growth factor, we can see that the required AADA was 767. So 896 is obviously more than 767, so this district would want to submit January growth factor. Again, prior to submitting, they'll want to do all of their quality assurance, make sure that they don't get error codes coming back to them. So actually generating the January growth factor, you will go to Kentucky State Reporting in Infinite Campus and then select SAR report. So even though in title it says growth factor, that you're actually going to go like you're running a SAR report. You'll choose all calendars and the state fixed width. We always recommend that you run a PDF for yourself as well, but the state fixed width is the format that you will submit through the KDE mailbox. And then with the red box around it, we're going to choose records 5, 7, 9, and H. And then you click Generate Report. And you should see a screen that looks something like this. You don't need to open it. It's going to come in a format that you won't necessarily be able to read with just a bunch of different numbers going across the screen. What you'll want to do is click Save As. And then your next box will pop up, and this is where you name your file. This is important to make sure you name it properly, otherwise it won't come through the mailbox. So your file name will be JANGF for January growth factor, your 3-digit district number, the school month you've chosen, and then a 2-digit year. So in this case, we've got JANGF, the school district number is 177, the month chosen was the 5th month because it had the most attendance days, so you see the 05, and then we've got .20 for the school year ending 2020. Again, there's an explanation of why the file is named as it is. This example was Frankfurt Independent School Month 5, school year ending 2020. And it shows you that the download had completed successfully. Something also, just maybe a helpful hint for you. I was trying to do this in Google Chrome, and I was having a hard time, and I switched to Internet Explorer, and it worked that way. So if you're not working in one browser, switch to a different one, and you should have success. You will submit your January growth factor through the KDE webpage. You can search SAR or growth factor, and it'll take you, and you'll see a submission link. Once you have uploaded your file, it'll go through an error check, and hopefully we don't have any errors. But if so, we can troubleshoot and solve them. This will be what your screen looks like. You'll want to click Browse to locate the file. Maybe you saved it to your desktop or just in your recent files. But this will be where you go get the file, we'll check it, and we'll review any errors that you have. You'll fill out this page when you're going to submit. Be sure to make sure you've got names spelled correctly. If someone goes by a nickname, enter the name as I would find it in the global. That way I can send the email back to everyone who is supposed to be receiving it. Here's some common errors that you might see and possible reasons why you're getting it. All of these errors do need to be corrected, with the exception of Record 7 errors can sometimes be ignored more so as a warning. Those are going to be the ones where maybe you've got an 8th grader taking a class at the high school or possibly something to do with virtual or performance-based students. If you do get that Record 7 error and you know it's one of those examples that's causing it, if you'll just make a comment in the comment box, when I see that error message come through on my end, I will know why. Again, make sure you run your quality assurance checks. Enrollment overlap is an important one. Any enrollment overlap greater than 1 day does have to be corrected. Also, about the file saving, going back a couple slides, if for some reason you've run your report more than once, oftentimes it'll populate a different file name with a parentheses at the end with a 1 or a 2 in it. You'll want to make sure you take that off and get it to match exactly what you see on the screen in the example so that it is able to submit. I've got my contact information on the screen there, phone number with my extension as well as Rhonda's, and both of our email addresses. If you have questions or you come across something, the easiest thing to do is take a screenshot and email me. That way I can research and figure it out, and I'll always get back to you, usually within 24 hours or so. But both of our phone numbers are there as well, so if you have any questions, we're glad to troubleshoot.
And I'll just add this, if, as he says, send him a screenshot. If it's a report or something and it contains personally identifiable information about a student, blur that out or just send him an email with the SSID and have him look into a particular student. Don't send screenshots of that.
Right, yes.
We have no questions, so thank you
job.
very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank
Perfect
you all.
timing. And that you were crystal clear, that means, because you have no questions.
I'll take it.